Good morning, Northwestern. I'm Shayna, and I'm a health promoter with the Perth District Health Unit. Today's MPACT event is all about informing teens and preventing injury. Many of you may have seen this crash on your way into school this morning. In a moment, fire, police, and EMS will be responding to the scene as if it were a real crash. This fake crash is meant to be realistic, so there may be some aspects that are graphic. In this particular scenario, the driver was at a party and consumed alcohol and a joint, and both him and the passenger were not wearing their seatbelts. Let's see how the events unfold.
Hello, my name is Sam. I'm a paramedic in Stratford. What you're seeing right now, students, is a patient that was ejected from the vehicle. The paramedics right now are working on assessing and treating her injuries. To our left, we have a second EMS crew. There was one patient that is still stuck inside the vehicle. We have Stratford Fire Department working on extricating or removing that patient with their jaws of life and equipment. And our EMS crew will wait on standby until that patient is freed from the wreckage.
Hello, it's Constable Keating of the Stratford Police. So what I was told when I came up to the scene is that the driver had been drinking and smoking pot all night and then got behind the wheel and drove, and this is the result that we've got here. Brad, can you assist over there?
Paramedic Sam here again. Update for you kids. It looks like the firemen are able to remove the rear door off of the vehicle. Right now, they're supporting the patient's head and neck. You can see a fireman inside of the vehicle with the patient. They will be utilizing their pneumatic tools or hydraulic tools here to remove the passenger door and get that patient out. On the other side of the crash, we have our patient that was ejected from the vehicle. She has now been loaded onto the stretcher, and we will be calling the air ambulance to take her to a trauma center in London, Ontario. So I just... Paramedic Sam again. At this time, the passenger door has been removed from the vehicle, and we are now able to assess the patient. Paramedics are going to do so as safely as possible so them or themselves or the fire department doesn't get injured. As you can see here, the fire department does a very good job of removing patients from their vehicles. It's not as easy as it sounds. There are airbags throughout the vehicle that you have to be cognizant of. They could explode in your face at any time. The seatbelt needs to be cut so the patient can be taken out, and some of these stabilizing bars that hold up the roof of the vehicle need to be cut off as well. Okay, so now that we have that stabilizing bar out of the way, we can remove the patient from the vehicle. We try our best to support their head and their neck so that they don't get a spinal injury. First off, we're going to want to put a neck collar on and check basic airway breathing and circulation. Is the patient breathing, and do they have a heart rate at this time? So at this time, the patient is not breathing and does not have a palpable pulse. Therefore, we call that patient vital signs absent, or VSA. At this time, we need to do CPR, get the bag valve mask breathing for the patient, and we need to shock the patient with some electrical activity. So right now the crew is just putting some defibrillation pads on the chest of the patient, and they're going to analyze what cardiac rhythm the patient is in. At this time, it is deemed a non-shockable rhythm.
How old? Does anybody know?
Anybody get some ID?
17.
At this time, the patient is in a non-shockable rhythm. Therefore, we're going to call a doctor in Owen Sound or in London, and that doctor is going to tell us what our next steps are. We could potentially be terminating resuscitation or pronouncing this patient on scene. As you can see, the fireman is handling the airway. He's using an oral airway and a bag valve mask to put positive pressure ventilations into the patient's lungs. Ian, who is doing CPR there, has now stopped as per the doctor in Owen Sound, and we are terminating resuscitation on this patient. This patient is pronounced dead.
Good morning.
morning, everyone. My name is Constable Laura Brown with the Burke County OPP. What you've witnessed right now is a terrible tragedy, and this is where our work really begins. An investigation will start now to try and put all the pieces back together to figure out exactly what happened and why. But unfortunately, one of the first orders of business for us will be delivering a death notification to this young man's family.
They going in first. I'm just
There's a ramp going on first.
What'd you do with your promo?
Only in a group though.
In the corner. So, Sam, somebody?
Good luck here.
Okay, you can search for.
Ew.
Okay. Grab the cravats in. Hey, Joe, wait 1 second.
So my name's Paramedic Sam. Hello everyone. Oh, there's a mic. Can everybody hear me? Hi there, good morning. My name's Paramedic Sam. I work here in Stratford, and we just brought this severely injured female teenage patient in for you here today. She was extricated from a vehicle that was in a car accident. We believe that she has been intoxicated. drinking some alcohol and consuming some cannabis. At this time, she has very severe injuries. She needs a trauma center in London. So we've actually extricated her via air ambulance off of the scene in Stratford, and she's en route to London right now in the air ambulance helicopter. At this time, they are assessing her injuries. They're starting with an IV because trauma can cause hypovolemia, which is volume loss or blood loss. So we have Joe working on the left arm right now doing an IV. On her left leg, we have an open fracture that will require a specialized splint. We put a neck collar on to protect her spine. And this is all stuff that will happen en route to the hospital. Every single long weekend in Ontario, someone dies on the highways somewhere in Ontario. Don't let it be you. All right, so Michaela is flying through the air in the air ambulance on the way to London right now, and next we will have the London Health Science Centre give you a presentation.
Slow your breathing down, dear. There you go. Try to relax. There you go.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Tanya, and this is Jennifer. You're here today from London Health Science Centre, trauma program in London. And today we're here to present to you our MPACT program. So we're just going to wrap up what we're seeing here today. As you guys realize, this is mock, it is fake, now this is real. Michaela is a paramedic student who's doing a great job training a trauma patient. All of what you see is fake, it's just makeup. Paramedic Joe there did a great job of doing the makeup. So just to wrap up the scene of what would happen next, Michaela would be transferred to the local hospital for any life-saving treatment to the best of the capacity of that hospital. And from there, she'd be transferred to a trauma center, which the nearest trauma center is our location in London, Victoria campus. So depending on the severity of her injuries, she'd be transferred either by ambulance, and just to give you a rough idea of cost, that would be about $250. But her injuries were severe, and she had to be flown by air ambulance through Orange and that trip would cost about $10,000. So from there, she'll be transferred to our hospital. A trauma team will be waiting for her, and she would be, I know her makeup looks pretty good, right? From there, she'd be transferred to our critical care trauma center. So there, depending on the age, we have an adult trauma center, a trauma unit, and a pediatric trauma unit. And that stay per day is about $4,000 with one-on-one nursing care. She could spend days or a few weeks, and depending on her severity and life-threatening injuries, she could be transferred to Parkwood Institute, which is a rehab center. And she could spend weeks or even months there recovering from her injuries. You saw that she has a big leg gash. She could have to learn how to walk again. Other services at Parkwood include occupational therapy, physical therapy. She has a big gash on her face. Maybe she had a brain injury and she has to learn to walk and talk again. So what you see is not the final journey. It's just the beginning of lifelong care. So I want to let you guys know of all the supports that are available at your school today, should you need to reach out to anybody for help or someone to talk to. We don't know your backgrounds or how you may react emotionally to what you see today or our presentation and what you're going to be seeing later today as well. So these are supports available for you guys today. And if you don't know who to go to, you can come to myself or Jennifer or one of your teachers, and we can direct you to the right person in contact and connect you guys with the appropriate people. So these headlines that you're seeing here are all too common and all too real in our communities. And all of these headlines could have been prevented in one way or another. But unfortunately, their actions or actions of other people cause them to change their lives forever. So not all injuries or traumatic events end lives, but they can cause life-changing and life-altering consequences. And they may not be able to do things they once did before. And it's because of these headlines that we're here today. And as I mentioned earlier, London Health Science Center is a level 1 trauma center that serves a large geographic area, which includes Stratford and Perth County. So if anybody in this community was involved in a serious injury, they'd be coming to our hospital for further treatment and care. So our goal for today is to provide you guys with the necessary tools to have fun and be responsible and not to end up as tomorrow's next headline story. We're not here to tell you how to spend your free time or what to do, but how to be safe and think twice before doing something that could end you up in an emergency department. So the leading cause of death for my age group, for your age group, and most people in this room is injury. Can anybody here tell me what the number 1 cause of injury is? Anybody take a guess? What did you guys just see outside?
Yeah, car crash.
A car crash, that's right. That's the number 1 leading cause of death for that age group. And you notice we didn't say car accident, it's a car crash, car collision, because we don't believe in accidents. They could have been prevented, right? All right, I'll pass it over to Jennifer.
Okay, guys, I think you're ready to participate in a bit of a scenario with me. So I'm hoping you'll do so, and so we can learn a little bit about this idea of a stupid line. So my opportunity for you guys is to go bungee jumping this weekend. Who would take me up on that? Now let me tell you about it first. The opportunity is with a company that has been in business for many, many years. They have an extensive website, extensive social media page. You actually know some good friends and family members that have jumped with them in the past, and they have 0 injuries in their course of business. Now stand up if you want to go up on this opportunity and go bungee jumping. Stand up tall. All right, that's awesome. So for those of you still standing, stay standing, stay standing. Would you still go bungee jumping if now it was with a company that just went into business a couple weeks ago? You can find no information about them whatsoever online, and the only reason you know about them is because a friend's boyfriend or girlfriend went jumping with them. That's kind of all the information you have. Who would still jump in that scenario? Okay, that's great. I still have some. All right, so my last option for those remaining, would you still go jump if now it was a homemade course? A course your best buddy made up at their cottage. They think they bought the right ropes and pulleys, watched the necessary YouTube videos, and thinks they set up a sweet course. Who would jump under those conditions? Okay, so we still have a few. That's great. Okay, everybody can have a seat. So my point behind this was to show that everybody has what we refer to in the MPACT program as a stupid line. A line that separates smart from stupid. Personally, everybody has a different line. I would have been sitting so hard on my hands or glued to the floor, not a chance would I be standing up for any of those options. But for some of you, you were interested, you were in. For today's scenario, in this setting, you quickly knew if you were in or out. Some of you even jumped up before I even finished the scenario. But in other situations, that decision might not be so easy. Any ideas what might blur that stupid line or make it hard to see? Yeah, in the back there.
Drugs and alcohol.
That's right. Anything else? Any other ideas? Yeah, and the shirt. Pardon? Cigarettes? They can have an effect on. Sorry, I didn't get you back there. Yeah, you might not have all the information. The other big one is peer pressure. Today, you guys are in this classroom environment. We've asked you to be quiet, think for yourself. So those factors are not at play, but can definitely make the stupid line not as visible. So we're going to focus a little bit more on marijuana now. That was a contributing factor to the crash that we saw outside. Marijuana has many different names. You see different ones coming up on the screen there, depending on who you're talking to. Weed, pot, cannabis. Also depends on the products that you're using. Marijuana is a mix of dried stems, leaves, flowers, seeds that is brown, grayish, green in nature, all coming from the cannabis stevia plant. All forms of marijuana contain THC, which is the psychoactive chemical that produces the high that users are after. The potency or the concentration of that THC greatly differs across products. And that's what we've seen a great increase overall across all products in the last number of years. It's estimated that marijuana overall has tripled in concentrations of THC over the last 3 decades. Some products contain up to 90% concentration of THC. So there's 2 main ways somebody can use marijuana. So inhalation or eating it. So what's the difference? So if you choose to smoke or vape it, it will only take seconds for the user to feel the effects, to feel that high. This method quickly affects your brain. Whereas ingesting or eating it can take 90 minutes or up to 4 hours to feel the effects. And that high can last up to 8 hours. This is because your digestive system has to break it down, and it takes time before that high, that chemical is in your bloodstream and gets to your brain. So you can think that somebody that is eating marijuana, because they don't feel that high right away, they could easily consume too much. So I have a question for you guys. What age does your brain finish growing in size? Any guesses? I see a hand right in the back there. Close. 25. So THC has a great impact, directly affects development, brain development. So simply put, weed has the greatest impact on a developing brain. So thinking about the short-term and long-term effects of marijuana, in the short term, a user can feel confusion, levels some anxiety, can have a slowed reaction time, and even cause delusions or hallucinations. The long-term effects can affect your memory, your concentration, and even your decision-making ability. So I have a video now to introduce our sort of next topic. So when we talk about marijuana, one of our greatest concerns is marijuana-impaired driving. So this video is a good introduction to how driving ability is impacted by marijuana or weed.
Focus benefits.
We're keeping it safe.
Wait. Yeah, like focus benefits.
We're keeping it safe.
Is that a word? Yeah, because we're focusing a little. I'm so better focused. I'm sure like a metal or receptor or something.
All right, so I'm not sure what was happening with the background noise there, but hopefully that was a bit of an introduction to our next topic area. So I'm going to pass it back to Tanya now. We're going to go through some myths or facts around the effects of marijuana and how can it impact our driving ability.
All right, guys, so we're going to go through a few questions. I hope you guys will participate and raise your hands if you know the answer. So the first question, there are more teens who report driving within 1 hour of smoking weed. Who thinks it's true? Put up your hand. Who thinks it's false? Put up your hand. About the same. So the answer is true. So there are more teens who report being high and driving within 1 hour. Okay, second question. When you're high and driving, you might think you're going faster than you really are. Who thinks that's true? Quite a few of you do, okay. Who thinks it's false? All right, not so many. The answer is true. So drivers who are high think they're actually going slower and they're being more cautious and being a safe driver. But if you're going slower, you could be at risk of being in a car crash or not being able to speed up if necessary or pull over if there's police or ambulance on the roads, right? Next question. Being high on weed can help you concentrate better and be a more alert driver. Who thinks it's true? One person, okay. Who thinks it's false? That's right, it's false. So pot slows down your tracking ability. You're not able to see the signs on the road, the speed limit, stop signs, and yields for passengers. So when you're high, it creates this safety box. So if you have a hoodie, it's like putting a hoodie on and driving. It blocks out your peripheral vision. So if there's a pedestrian crossing the street, by the time you see them, they're going to be right in front of you and it's going to be too late. Next question. Oh, I think I went too fast. Okay. It's safer to drive when you're burnt out after smoking weed than your initial high. Who thinks it's true? You saw the answer, right? It's actually false. So being high, it's like having a hangover. So you feel exhausted and dizzy and you don't have that initial high anymore, but you physically and mentally aren't capable of driving. And last question. Driving high on weed is impossible for police to detect. Who thinks it's true? One person? Who thinks it's false? Most of you think it's false. It is false, that's right. So police officers, local police, OPP, are being trained as DRE experts, drug recognition experts. So they're able to do a field sobriety test and determine whether or not you are impaired, or they can take you down to the station and do further testing. All right, I'll pass it back to Jennifer.
So just to wrap up on how our brain is affected by marijuana, thank you, and how this impacts our ability to drive safely. So there's indication that your brain needs to process about 1,000 things at a time to drive. So it needs to take in all that information and filter through it and decide what it needs to know. So the specific cognitive effects that hinder your ability to drive are you're more forgetful, you're less focused, you have worse judgment, we talked about slowed reactions, and you feel more vulnerable, or this sort of invisible, like you can do anything. Therefore, you're more likely to take more risks. So high driving is impaired driving. And so what are the legal consequences? There's absolutely zero tolerance for high driving. So zero tolerance for impaired driving for drivers under 21 or any driver with their G1 or G2. So some general guidelines in terms of when is it safe to drive. You need to wait at least 6 hours after smoking marijuana and at least 8 hours after ingesting or eating marijuana. Now, those guidelines greatly differ on the individual and also based on the potency or the THC levels of the products you're using. So I have one final slide before we introduce our guest speaker for today. I have a question for you guys. Raise your hand. Who would get into this plane knowing this is the state of your pilot? Anyone? I don't know about you, when I first saw this poster, I was pretty shocked by it, thinking it was outrageous to even consider that. But I push you to think, in many ways, this could be safer than getting in a car with an impaired driver or a high driver. First off, in a airplane situation, you've got a co-pilot. That co-pilot could take over if he or she is sober. You've got air traffic control that controls when you're allowed to take off and land and controls and ensures a more safe environment. You've got autopilot technology. We don't have self-driving cars yet. And up in the air, you don't have vulnerable road users. You don't have pedestrians. You don't have cyclists. You don't have motorcyclists. You don't have other traffic that make it difficult to drive safely. So I'll leave you guys with that final thought to help you consider what your safe options are. So we're lucky enough today to have one of our guest speakers with the MPACT program today. His name's Andrew Crawford. He's going to be interviewed today by one of your fellow students, Anna. So I'm going to get them up on the stage and pass the mics to them.
Where do you want us to sit?
All right. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hello, I'm not Matt. How are you?
Good. I'm good.
Thanks for having me today.
No problem. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you currently doing? Just a little general introduction.
So just a general little introduction about me. See that? I'm hearing myself a little too much. General introduction about me. I'm Andrew Crawford. My name is Andrew Crawford, sorry. I'm 24 years old. Just graduated Fanshawe College for a second time. And just kind of living, just living life right now. Just trying to get by as a 24-year-old.
So tell us what high school was like for you.
High school was a good time for me. I actually come from Chatham, Ontario, just a little bit south down the highway there. So high school was just your stand up. All right. So high school was just a regular kind of high school experience. Your friend groups. I go socialize. Got my driver's license, grade 11. Just your average high school life, very social, interactive, do sports, savor your friendships, that kind of thing.
What kind of things did you like to do?
Everything. I love sports, but love biking. I had a job right since I was in grade 9, so I was working all throughout my high school career, but it was work with friends, physical activity. It was just around your average high school experience.
What were your goals for the future?
I really didn't. I can't say that I had any shoot for the moon goals back in high school, but one goal that I did really want out of just in general life was just to get a job, a career that I enjoyed doing and something that I would succeed at.
Describe what happened the night leading up to the crash.
So that ends up leading to the end of my first time of college career. I ended up going to school for radio broadcasting because that was something that I really enjoyed doing. I love music and people say I got a good voice. So it was one thing that I really wanted to do. Ended up getting the schooling done, ended up going back to Chatham for the summer, and then all our Chatham friends ended up kind of having one of them end of the summer parties where everybody kind of gets together and hangs out. I'm not walking. So that's me, that's who I used to be, that's what I used to look like. As you can see, kind of thin guy, very athletic. It was a party at the end of the summer. All the friends were together, as I said, and we were all just socially drinking, just kind of doing all the things you're not supposed to do as a teenager at this house party. One thing led to another where there was a good friend of mine that I'd known all my life. She's family friend, her dad, my dad used to be buddies back in the day, and they were, we were all socially drinking. She had a boyfriend there, somebody we didn't really know, and he was telling us about this really cool car he had. So, as curious teenagers are, we're always like, sounds cool, go get the car, bring it back to us. So we did. That individual had been consuming alcohol that evening as well. So, he was not in a state to leave the party to go get a vehicle and bring it back. But he did, and somehow or another, myself, 3 other friends, as well as the boyfriend and girlfriend, the driver and passenger of the vehicle, he ended up going and getting the vehicle and bringing it back to the party. One thing led to another. We all ended up getting in the vehicle, and then he proceeded to drive under the influence of alcohol. As an intoxicated driver would, he was speeding, blowing through stop signs. It wasn't really regarding the laws too well there. We were in a very small neighborhood, very not one-way streets, sorry, very straight streets, north-south, east-west, very, very, it's car mapish. Didn't care, sweet no. So ended up taking the car. He was whipping around the neighborhood. There was the driver and then the passenger. And then there was me, friend 1, friend 2, and then a girl laying across her laps in the back of the car. So the buddy was driving around the neighborhood really fast. on a straightaway road. He ended up, it was a 40-kilometer-hour zone. He ended up doing about 85 down this road. It's a school zone, so you know it's a 40, use your safety there, common sense. So the kicker with this straightaway road is it's a very long stretch, and then it goes into a very hard S-bend. I don't think he knew the S-bend existed, because as we were flying down the road doing about 85, he ended up hitting the S-bend. So he hit his brakes, slid into the S-bend. He actually ended up hitting the corner with so much force that he ended up taking both right side tires off the vehicle. The car then rolled. There was a light post and a hydro box. The car then rolled off the light post into the hydro box. The box explodes. The car ended up getting flipped about 7 or 8 times. So while all this is happening, I'm in the back seats behind the driver with the 2 friends beside me, you know, 1, 2, and then individual on laps. So before the crash had happened, I'm assuming I sensed something bad was going to happen. I ended up pushing the girl on her laps to the floor, kind of giving her the floor space where my feet were, putting me in a vulnerable position so that when we end up hitting the corner, I actually end up getting bucked up and thrown out of the sunroof. So as you can see, it's a little hard to see there, but the right side of the car is very damaged. You can kind of see where the impact was where we hit the box. So we're rolling the car. Car actually ended up rolling off of the light post and then ended up making contact with the hydro box. The box then exploded. Car got ended up getting 40, 50 feet from the scene. While this is happening, I ended up getting bucked up and thrown out of the sunroof. When we hit the hydro box, I ended up made a connection with my arm on one piece of the metal or another, and was electrocuted, and then thrown from the vehicle about 40, 50 feet. So I was apparently lost about 86 units of blood between scene and hospital, and then hospital being London. So I went from scene to Chatham, then to London. There was. It was one of those incidents where I shouldn't have lived, and it really did bring the community together because it was such a tragic incident that happened. I know there's a question coming up about the injuries. I don't know if I should jump the injuries or not. There was a broken femur, a broken pelvis. The head injury I sustained was super massive. The brain injury I sustained it should have been life-ending. The brain ended up swelling about 3 times its natural size, so they ended up having to remove half my skull for about 6 months. I'm blind in my right eye now because of the force that my head hit the concrete at. It kind of pinched the retina between the brain and the eye there. As you can see my arm, I was electrocuted there, so I'm missing a pinky finger. There's a skin grafting there on the forearm. But you can't see a lot of my injuries because they're more internal than they are external. My right leg is about 1.5 inches shorter than my left leg because of the femur break. They had to remove some of the bone there. I said blind in my right eye because the head trauma, back issues, muscle spasms. I had some broken. Broken scapula in my back. It was an all-around rough time. It was not a good incident, and it all ended up happening because I ended up getting in the vehicle with a drunk driver. After consuming alcohol myself, the stupid line didn't exist to me that evening, and this was the results of crossing that stupid line.
The next question is actually about the stupid line. So, do you think you crossed the stupid line?
Yeah. So, stupid line was crossed. Not sure if there even was a stupid line that evening. I feel like the whole incident itself was just a stupid event that should have never happened. Just because of poor decisions made on my part as well as just other people's parts involved in that. But it was one of those things where I'm not going to say peer pressure, but when we're in groups of friends, that stupid line often just is disregarded entirely, and you never really even think of the consequences of what the actions are. And this was one time where that stupid line was not even thought of, and the consequences are far greater than the one would ever expect and imagine.
So after the crash, do you remember what happened next?
Yeah, so after the crash, I just ended up waking up in the hospital about 2 months later. No, about a month now. I want to say it was about a month from incident later. A little over a month. I was in the hospital. I had a pelvic brace bolted in me. I couldn't bend. I was missing half a skull. I did still have my pinky finger at that time because they did think there was a chance they could save it. It was just severely. I never actually saw it, so I'm not sure what the condition was. They had it wrapped, but there was a hope at one point in time. You know, it really just kind of started. Just ended up starting just kind of from scratch. It was one of those things where I just woke up and just started to tried to resume life as normal. You know, it was almost like nothing had happened, even though something very bad had happened. In my mind, I just had not comprehended what had happened yet. You know, how could I? I was in a coma for a month. I didn't really have any free time to think. But yeah, so then it was, you know, that was, I want to say that was about the first thing I want to remember is just being in the hospital bed, being bolted, medicated up a lot, and just not really, being really frustrated, because I didn't have anything at that point. Well, no weight, no, you know, it was half a head was missing at that point. No weight, no head, and essentially bolted to the bed. It's not very frustrating for feeling.
So you already described your injuries. So what type of rehabilitation did you need?
So the first thing that was rehabbed, that I never actually even really thought about it being a sense of rehab until I guess more recently, 6 months ago, I started thinking about it. The first sense of rehab I actually had was putting on my socks. With the being bolted in the pelvis, you know, bone callus form, bending was near impossible because I've been laying in a bed for 2 months. So bending down and putting on my socks was a nightmare because I couldn't do it. So that, you know, there was a nurse that always used to help me put my socks on, and then she stopped helping me put my socks on one day, and I got, you know, really frustrated because it's like, you know, it's your job, you're supposed to be helping me put my socks on. You stop helping me put my socks on. Now my feet are cold, I got no socks, you know, what's going on here? So then I started to have to put my own socks on. And that was the first, you know, form of rehabilitation now that I look at it, because, you know, it was a nurse forcing me to do it, not even forcing me to do it myself, but forcing me to do it myself because she wanted to see me succeed. The second little bit of rehab there would have been learning how to walk again. You know, 19, you never really think you didn't ever need to learn how to walk again. You know, left foot forward, right foot forward. But it was actually a very stressful two weeks a month of just trying to learn how to do that again. And then yeah, from there on it was just step by step. You know, we got you walking again. Let's try and maybe get you riding a bike again. Okay, we got you riding a bike again. Let's see if maybe you can drive. Okay, you can drive. Let's maybe see if we can get you back in school again. Okay, we can get you back to school again. Let's maybe see, you know, let's see how far we can take it. And now it's been 5 years, so you know, rehab's still going.
How did the injuries affect your day-to-day tasks?
Yeah, so day-to-day tasks, right off the bat, I was like sock trouble, obviously. Couldn't put on my socks in the morning, so that was the day-to-day right there is off the kind of whack. You know, looking back on it, for the first little while, you know, 2014, I didn't have anything, you know, going for me. I had no weight, no head, you know, no job. Lost my job because no one wants to hire somebody in the hospital. You know, it was just it ended up being one of those lives that I just ended up living. I was, you know, in a bed, doing rehab by day, and just trying to see anybody I could at nighttime. And for the first 3 or 4 months, that was just the life of, you know, just living, just a general, like I said, recovery life, trying to rehabilitate yourself and become, you know, what I was before the incidents. And then after that, it was just, you know, step by step of just, you know, getting that rehab. The rehabilitation just kind of done. You know, I had surgeries, I had bars in my leg that need to be removed. That was limiting to some movements and things like that. It was just more of a checklist of just doing one by one. I guess for the rehab over the time. And you know, slowly learned how to walk again, learned how to drove, went back to school. Now I'm here doing this.
How long was your recovery?
Well, we're going on 5 years in August. Well, I shouldn't say 5 years in August, I should say 5 years in well, I guess it'll be January, so we just passed 4 years because really I didn't start rehab until, I guess October, November, January of 2014, 13 there. So, we're about 4.5 years. It's still, rehab is still going on, once every couple of weeks I still go see a lady for my back because my back still hurts almost every day. There's still things I can't do. I still see a personal trainer where we have to try and work on recovering that, that muscle that was lost. And I think really the reality of rehab is it'll be something that I'm doing for the rest of my life. I don't think it's something that just ever ends.
Did the car crash change your relationship with the friends that were in the car with you?
You know what? There's 5 people in the car. 3 of them, good friends of mine, obviously. 2 of the 3 that were good friends of mine, we're still good friends. I still talk to them very actively. One of the other individuals who was my friend, he ended up moving to, I think he went to Windsor for schooling. He's just doing his own life. When you do bring up the incident, though, he cannot talk about it. He has a very hard time talking about it. I couldn't imagine what the situation in his head is because he's on the other side of the car where he was injury free. So I don't really know the situation there. And I respect that. And if I ever see him, I just look out as a friend and don't ever react like this and never, it's just one of those things that led us to where we are now. The driver and the passenger, though, the boyfriend and girlfriend, we don't have a relationship anymore.
How did the crash and your recovery affect your family and those who were close to you?
Yeah, so the family really did end up suffering the most. Obviously, there's no worse feeling than when a cop shows up at your house at 2 o'clock in the morning, knock on your door, tell you, your kid might not make it. So right off the bat, I can imagine how they felt. I do have a younger sister, so with the first, for the first, I want to say, week or 2, it was a 50-50 if life or death. So the parents are spending every day in the hospital with me. I have a sister as well, as you can see in the picture. At the time, she was actually just going into grade 12. So it happened about 3 weeks before she starts grade 12. Her parents are gone for every day, they're never there. So she ended up psychologically suffering a lot. Like she never ended up going to school that year. She ended up having to push that back a year. The emotional strain that I can only assume was put on my parents, it would be one of those things that I would never wish on anybody to ever have to feel that way, let alone the suffering that ended up kind of following around them. My dad owns a business, my mom works for my uncle, so right off the bat, the uncle-to-mom relationship, that business is a little tense because, the situation that played out. My dad almost sold his business because he had to tend to the situation that was in front of him instead of actually, focusing on the business and, I guess putting a paycheck on the table that week. And then, as I said, the sister, I just psychologically, it almost felt like she was abandoned for half a month. So I couldn't imagine what that would have felt like, and I would never asked anybody would never wish that upon anybody ever have to feel like that. And then we look into the 2 paramedics that were the 2 responding paramedics that night. I had the chance to meet them actually about a year. I want to say about 10 months after the incident. I got to meet them in, I think, July of 2014. It was very awesome. It was awesome to meet them because they are the 2 that saved my life. But to see the psychological effect on them was very real to me as well. The one gentleman on the right, he was a younger. This was 4 years ago, obviously, but he was a younger guy just on the force. Only been on the force for, let's say up to 5 years at that point, maybe up to 10. So, hasn't seen as much as some people that have been on the force for 20, 30 years. Like the gentleman that on the left, he'd been on the force for, I couldn't even tell you, he gave me a number, but it was a long time. And he actually couldn't even look me in the eye because of just the incident still in his mind of having to respond that night. So it was one of those things where, I had to meet them. I had to shake their hand. I had to thank them for ultimately saving my life and just giving me the option to, giving me the gift to continue, because they did their part and it really ended up helping save my life. So.
What was the biggest lesson you learned?
There are a lot of lessons to be learned from this incident. Right off the bat, getting in a vehicle with an individual that had been drinking and driving, right off the bat is just one of the stupidest things I could have done. It had been a few years that I've been drinking to that point and making wise decisions never to get into a vehicle with a drunk driver. That's one thing that you've been taught all your life. You just never do that. Why would you ever do that? It's stupid to do that. I ended up doing that night. I couldn't even tell you why I ended up doing that. I ended up doing that night, and the results are what you see there. It was a horrific accident. Or a horrific crash, I should say. It's one of those things where peer pressure, you should never follow peer pressure. It's one of those things that it's never really worth it. The drinking and driving, you should always be aware of the individuals who are, if you're having a party or at a party, you should be aware of who's drinking and then who may have drove, and so that they don't make sure they don't have their keys so that they can't be a individual who's drinking and driving, or drinking and driving. You really just look out for your friends. It was a decision that me and a group of friends made that evening, and we were all friends with each other. So at the time, nobody was going to stop each other. But if there had been another friend outside that could have stopped us, I feel like that could have been a very real situation where another friend could have stepped in and said, hey, we're aware that guy's been drinking, not a good idea to get in the vehicle with him. And that really, I think that helps save lives. So, friends looking out for friends, not giving in to peer pressure, and then don't letting anybody drink and drive. It's as simple as taking away the keys when they come to your party and just making sure, that everyone gets home safe.
Were you able to accomplish the goals you set before the crash?
Yeah, it's one of those things where your goals change when your situation changes at that point. The situation before the accident versus the situation after the accident, very different situations. My goals are still to succeed and spread, to do well in life. But my goals have also kind of been reshaped since the accident. To now, I look forward to these presentations. I look forward to trying to spread positivity and happiness. I just try and live life with a smile every day on my face. I guess it doesn't matter the goals that I had before versus the goals I have after. The goal in the end is still just to provide happiness to everyone I meet and just kind of enjoy life.
What made you want to share your story and partner with community organizations?
Well, obviously, right off the bat, with all the healthcare and the medical needs that I ended up meeting, it was almost owed on me to help to volunteer for them again. The Canadian Blood Society, 86 units of blood. When an individual donates blood, that's 1 unit. So, this half of the room, I think 86 people, maybe the whole room, 86 people it took to save my life. Versus, the London Victoria Health Science Center right off the bat, they're the surgeons and the doctors and everything that worked for just three days straight on me, just trying, to just try and keep me, just try and keep me alive. It's a part on me that I owe it to try and help them as much as I can, and to offer my my workmanship, volunteer, just try and spread the message that these organizations are spreading, because it is a good message in the end, and it is just a message to try and save lives and just to promote a good community togetherness where if someone needs help over here, we're all going to come together to donate blood or to help with the recovery, or even financially, if financially happens, because sometimes that does happen. It's just one of those things where now I feel like I owed it to work with these organizations because they've given me another chance to live, and now I wouldn't change a thing.
So what is one thing you'd like everyone to take away about your message about the crash or the night?
Yeah, I think it's more or less kind of exactly what I was saying earlier. Don't let peer pressure kind of control your decisions. We're all capable of making our own decisions. Don't give into a decision because 3 other people that you think are cool are giving into this decision. You know, it might not be a good decision at that point. Always look after your friends as well. You know, when you're at a party, you're not alone. Or if you are, you know, make sure that someone is aware of where you're at, or, you know, what you're doing, or, you know, who you're with, because, you know, it could just be, you know, 1 second where you just get disconnected and you could lose somebody. And that is a very bad situation that happens very often with people where, you know, one person gets separated from a group and then an incident can happen. So always look out for your friends. And then if you ever have a party, just make sure whoever drives isn't drinking and then driving. Take away the keys is a big, you know, take the keys put them in a jar, and then, you know, I can't get the keys, and, you know, it's as simple as that. You can come pick them up tomorrow. You know, call your mom, come pick her up. You know, it's one of those things where if we all look after each other, then we can all make sure that we all live to another day. You know, it's one of those things where I look after you, you look after me, and then we're gonna live a happy life.
All right, I think that's all the questions. Thank you very much.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Thanks so much, Andrew and Anna. We're running a bit short on time, but luckily Andrew's staying with us for the day, so you'll have some opportunity to come and connect with him individually.
All right, so we have a website called impactprogram.ca. So most of you guys got your wristbands this morning, right? Yeah, and if you haven't, you will be getting them either Monday or sometime next week. So it's a great resource, a great website for resources, more stories. Our infographics that you saw today, they're on our website as well. So check it out. And a couple of take-home messages, as Andrew mentioned. And Jennifer, think about your stupid line. So everybody has that point where they will not cross. And be aware of the factors that influence your decisions. Have a buddy system. Don't assume that your friend got home when they wandered off. Call, check up on them, go to their house, make sure they got home safe. And always have a way to get home safely at the end of the night. There are many different ways you can get home. Andrew touched on them too. Call your parents, call a friend, have a DD, take Uber, a taxi, whatever it may be. There's no excuse to drive while impaired.
All right, so this is one part of today's impact event, but there is more going on at the lunch hour. First off, I'd like to thank all those that were involved in our mock crash scene this morning, all our emergency services, Michaela as well. Many of the emergency services, victim services, us will be here through the lunch hour with some booths in the atrium, so come up and see us, talk to us individually. We've got some different events and things going on there. And just lastly, I want to remind you about the supports that are available. Again, we don't know the backgrounds that you guys are coming from, how you're feeling after what we've shown today, the images, the mock crash. So there's supports available here today at your school and ongoing at your school and in the community as well. So thank you so much for listening, and I'm going to pass it back to one of your teachers.
Thanks. All right. Hello, everyone. I just need 2 more minutes of your time, and then we're done here. Really quickly, I want to thank everybody that was involved in today. So this takes a ton of planning. We've got OPP, Stratford Police, EMS, Fire, Perth District Health Unit, MPACT, London Health Sciences Center, a paramedic student. I'm probably missing somebody. We have a ton of people here today, okay? So can we put, and John in our tech booth up here just gave me a look. So if we could get a clap, a round of applause for those guys. That'd be amazing. A couple of quick notes. First off, when we do start to leave, I've just been asked if we could all just help with stacking some chairs. That would be awesome on our way back to class. It'll take 2 seconds. That would be much appreciated. Second, at lunch, as was mentioned, there are going to be some booths set up in the main lobby area. Check that stuff out. We recently took some students from this school to the Ontario Students Against Impaired Driving National Conference. There are some representatives from that organization here as well. So if you want to get involved with that for next year, it was an absolutely incredible time. Any of the students that went will tell you that. The last thing, for teachers who have a period, I said 3 in the email, period 4 class, could you please share with your students the link that I've sent you in the email? So it's to a Google form. It'll take a minute to fill out. Every student that fills it out, their name will go into a draw for a gift card to Subway, I think we said. And I will, or somebody will do that draw by the end of day today, maybe, or by the end of the weekend for sure, so you'll know on Monday. Anything else we want to say? Okay, folks, if we can put these chairs up really quickly, thank you so much for sticking with us through a longer assembly room.